Hi guys, how are you all? How is everybody today? It's a rainy, cloudy day, so I hope the internet's working okay. Hello! For those of you that don't know me, my name is Naomi Judge. I'm a naturopath and clinical nutritionist, and I help women connect the dots between their health, their happiness, and their hormones. And today we're talking about a really cool hormone called leptin. Leptin is a hormone that acts from the hypothalamus, from the brain, and it helps to regulate appetite in the body. It helps to regulate our energy expenditure. So when we've got leptin that is low, so low leptin, essentially what we'll be doing is we'll be using less energy and we'll be feeling hungry. So that could be somebody, say, that doesn't have a lot of calorie intake. Hi Rebecca, how are you? Hope you're keeping warm and dry today. It's crazy out there, really crazy rain and cold and all sorts of things going on. So keep well, keep dry and keep warm, and keep the cleansing soups up. So if you've got low leptin, what should be happening is low leptin, you might be losing a little bit of weight, you should be feeling a little bit more hungry, and your body will be using less energy. It'll be trying to keep its energy, it'll be trying to keep its energy stores so that you've got energy to use, because it's not too sure maybe when your next meal is coming from. Now, historically, people with a little bit more adipose tissue around on them present with more leptin. It's the adipose tissue that creates the leptin. It makes the leptin, it sends the signals to increase leptin in your body. More adipose tissue normally means you use more energy and it turns off the hunger. So it's kind of this homeostasis that it's meant to keep. The leptin is meant to keep that homeostasis. So you never lose your appetite, you never go into an anorexic state where you're never hungry, you don't feel like eating. And also, when you're overweight, when you've got lots of adipose tissue, you're not hungry all the time. But in fact, this isn't happening. This is getting all turned around any which way but loose because of historically low-fat diets, because of not eating, exercising, not eating fat, even overeating, comfort eating. So because we've lost those kind of the routine in our diet, just diet to eat for energy, it's starting to send the wrong messages. And there are lots of other things going on, but essentially it's the wrong messages are being sent from our brain, from our body to the fat to our brain, all those kind of things. It's just mismatched. So now it's leaving people that maybe don't need to be snacking all the time, hungry all the time, and maybe people that need to be eating more actually not hungry all the time. So that's essentially what leptin does. It kind of controls that homeostasis. It controls when we're hungry and it controls when we're not hungry. So in some people, great, it works really well and they have these really good mechanisms. They eat a meal and after the meal they feel satisfied, they feel full, and they're not hungry until the next meal. But that's not a lot of people, because so many different things are going on with hormones, so many different things are going on with our energy expenditure and also the energy that we take in with food, that it's just not working how it should be. And this goes with a lot of hormones. A lot of hormones now are not working. The feedback mechanisms are not working as well as they should be. We look at thyroid hormones, we look at thyroid stimulating hormones, and that mechanism from the pituitary to the thyroid is not working how it used to be working. So really what it means is we've got to look at mechanisms, we've got to look at what's going on with other hormones, and we've got to kind of drill down to what that hormone actually does in the body. So we know leptin regulates this cycle of hunger, sort of fasting. We know that leptin is higher between midnight and the morning. So when leptin is high, it turns off hunger. So if it's high between, say, midnight and say 6 a.m. that's the time when we're not meant to be eating. So essentially people that start waking up for midnight snacks, that can be one of the first signs that maybe your leptin's not working as well as it should be. You're waking up at midnight, you're waking up at 1, you're waking up at 2, and you're needing a little bit of a snack, you're feeling hungry. That can be one of the first signs that your leptin is out of balance. It's also a good indication that those who do shift work, maybe those that work through the night, nurses, doctors, surgeons, police, people that work for the police, those kind of emergency services, like people that work through the night, their leptin could be out of balance. So it means that just doing more for leptin doing more for your hormones and doing more for hormones like melatonin and actually regulating your sleep a little bit better can do a lot for this appetite hormone. So leptin plays a critical role in many areas of our body, more so than we actually imagine and we would think. So it does actually, it's the main hormone, as I said, that gets you into that starvation mode. So it helps to sort of reset the body in that term, in that respect. We know that short-term fasting can decrease leptin. So if you know you've got leptin resistance, you know your leptin is you've got high leptin, but you're leptin resistant, then sometimes short-term fasting can actually reset that. So that's good to know. We know that leptin levels get out of balance and they lower through lack of sleep. So that can reduce leptin. So if you're not sleeping properly, it can reduce leptin as well. Anywhere we've got more adipose tissue, weight issues, we've got obesity, and when there's also stress as well, that can raise leptin levels. So we know that high leptin levels do turn that hunger signal off. So what that essentially means for people that are stressed out, and I've seen, I have a lot of clients that come and see me, and they're never hungry. They really are never hungry, so they'll eat through the day if they have to. But essentially, I've got a lot of clients that maybe miss breakfast and then won't eat until halfway through the day, even they'll wait till dinner time. And they say, look, I'm just never hungry. And what that can mean is it can mean that things have actually caused leptin imbalance. So it's causing the leptin to rise. So when the leptin's higher, it turns off those hunger cues, and that can be stress can do that. So high cortisol can do that. It can turn off that hunger cue. So that's why some people actually lose a lot of weight when they get stressed. So some people might gain weight when they get stressed, but often a lot of people might actually lose weight when they get stressed because it's turning off your hunger signals. It's kind of like a survival mechanism for some. So there are two camps of people. Some people that will get stressed and eat and eat and eat, and some people that get stressed and don't eat, and then they can lose a lot of weight, and they often lose a lot of muscle store. But that's what can be going on as well. Estrogen dominance is a biggie. It's an interesting one here because estrogen dominance can actually cause leptin to rise, and so you would then think that being estrogen dominant, it would turn off certain signals in the body, hunger cues, but that's not actually what's happening. What can happen here is that estrogen can cause your leptin to rise, and it can actually interfere with how the leptin is used in your body, and that's when we're looking at things like leptin resistance, leptin not working. Another thing that can increase leptin as well, another thing that has a nice relationship with leptin is actually insulin. And when I say nice, not nice in kind of a good way, but they actually have very, very close relationships. So if you're leptin resistant, you're more likely to be insulin resistant, and you're more likely to have higher levels of insulin running through your blood. And we know insulin is a very inflammatory hormone. Insulin is a growth hormone. So insulin will cause fat storage around your belly. It can cause growth. It can cause growths like moles and maybe even skin tags and that kind of thing. So when leptin is involved, we know that estrogen is tightly knit with it and is involved as well. So if there's any leptin issues in the body, then there's most likely going to be higher circulating levels of insulin in the body, causing maybe acne, causing maybe hair growth, causing inflammation, causing pain. And when those two are out of balance, and when those two are either high, when they're high, and we've got the leptin resistance and insulin resistance, that's kind of the double whammy, and that's one of the hardest times there are to lose weight, because there's so much inflammation in the body, and that's the kind of weight that's all over. It's very inflamed, it's all over the body, and there's pockets of leptin, pockets of insulin, the hormone, running around, and we're unable to actually get them balanced out so that the metabolic systems can work normally. So that's a real issue there that I find with clients that want to lose weight. There's just that's one of the biggest reasons of stubborn weight, when people's leptin and insulin are kind of working together, not for the greater good of your body and your metabolic system. Low leptin levels, we see low leptin levels a lot in people that are zinc deficient, because that can affect your hunger cues as well. So being zinc deficient can actually be onset to anorexia, that feeling of not wanting to eat, not being hungry, waking up in the morning and really not wanting breakfast. That can be one of the first signs that your leptin is actually going to be out of balance. And that's the first sign, that's the first piece of the puzzle. That's actually where you can go in and you can actually do some work to help rebalance your leptin levels, because we know that low leptin can lead to depression. We know that low leptin can lead to memory loss issues, dementia, Alzheimer's. So it's really important to make sure that you're keeping your leptin levels at a really good balance, not too high, not too low. They're balanced out, and I'll let you know how you can kind of keep them balanced and prevent yourself from getting leptin resistance in a moment. But we know that definitely those with anorexia have low leptin, and that can cause a lot of issues as well with mental health. One of the hormones that does stimulate leptin, and this can actually help with leptin resistance, is melanin. And melanin is produced on your skin, can be produced from the sunlight. That the kind of like melanin stimulating hormone produces melanin on the skin, that darkness. So this is why, and this is really interesting, we know that higher leptin, when it's working beautifully and your leptin goes high, we know that that can turn off hunger cues. So this is why a lot of people, when they go on holiday, maybe a sunny holiday, maybe hanging out in the sun, getting a little bit of a tan, you're not really as hungry as you are when it's winter time and you're inside all the time and you're not getting that melanin stimulated, because the melanin will actually help to stimulate the leptin. So if you know you've got low leptin, very low leptin levels, low leptin levels where you might feel hungry, your body will be using less energy, you won't feel, your energy levels will be a bit lower, and you will have that you will have that hunger all the time. Getting a little bit of sunlight, getting the vitamin D, getting your melanin increased will actually help. Now, I haven't looked at studies, but I've just thought of something interesting, and those with more melanin naturally, darker skin tones, I don't know if that actually affects leptin levels, but that would actually be interesting to look at. I need to write that down, whether if you've got naturally darker skin, naturally lighter skin, how much that would affect leptin levels and how much that would then affect your metabolic energy use. So your metabolism is how you use energy. Some people are so efficient at using energy. Some people can just run on their own stores of energy. They can just run on their own fat stores. They can build muscle, and their body's at this beautiful kind of like metabolic, beautiful synthesis where it's all working together and your body's doing what it naturally needs. Whereas other people rely on, say, intake of sugars, intake of refined carbs to get their metabolism revving up. And then that's when things start to go wrong. So essentially our body should be able to run by itself. When we've got lack of food, our body starts using less energy. When we've got an abundance of food, our body starts using more energy, so we don't store it as fat, and then our body tells us we're not hungry, but that really isn't happening. So the main issues that I see are with the balance of hormones in the body, and particularly stress. So when we get stressed, when we've got any trauma in our life, we've got past trauma or anything that's occurred, that's going to cause inflammation in the brain, and any inflammation in the brain causes what's called a little bit of a shrinkage. So it has been shown that trauma from a past trauma, current trauma, can cause a slight shrinkage in the brain, and that's where the messages can start to go a little bit wrong. So instead of suppressing appetite, maybe it makes you feel more hungry and that type of thing. So they all go topsy-turvy. So with leptin, we want to look at either looking at the signs and symptoms, looking at whether we've got good balanced leptin, whether we've got some of the signs. So some of the signs, like I said, waking between midnight and about 4 a.m. feeling hungry. That's a telltale sign. So you're feeling hungry. So sometimes cortisol and insulin can cause you to wake at like 3 or 4 a.m. with a start, and that can be because your blood sugar has dropped. And so what's happening is your body is initiating a cortisol adrenaline response to get insulin from your glycogen stores into your blood supply because it thinks you're in danger. So that can happen. But with leptin, you'll actually feel hungry. And here's the thing, there's a lot of you, not a lot, but some of you who do snack, who do need to snack through the night. I do have some clients that will wake at around 2 a.m. and they might have some nuts by their bed, or they may go to the fridge and get a little bit of a snack. That is a telltale sign that your leptin is not doing what it needs to do. And most likely your leptin is too low. It's too low, or you've got leptin resistance. So the difference between leptin resistance and the difference between low leptin, I'm just going to sort this out just to help you out here. Low leptin, you're more likely to feel hungry. Low leptin, you're more likely to be underweight, maybe excessive exercising, maybe you're not eating as much food as you should do, particularly fat. When you've got leptin resistance, you're more likely to hold on to adipose tissue. You're more likely to have a weight problem and also a blood sugar problem. So that's kind of the difference between the two. They can manifest and it can be similar, but that's kind of the difference between the two. Now, with the leptin resistance, you'll feel unsatisfied after eating. So you'll have a main meal, you'll have your dinner, you'll have your lunch, and you really will feel like you need something else. That's a telltale sign as well. Craving after eating, so craving. So where you've had your main meal and you kind of feel like, maybe I need a little bit of sugar, maybe I need a little bit of sweet, maybe I need something. So that can be a sign as well of your leptin being leptin resistant. Persistent snacking, so grazing through the day and not being satisfied with your 3 main meals. Now, it's one thing to be hungry, really hungry because you haven't eaten enough. That's one thing. But really, if you're snacking every hour and you need to snack every hour, that's going to affect your leptin levels, and that will cause leptin resistance. So that's a big issue. And the need for more food, bigger and bigger portions. The portions get bigger and bigger, and the need for more food, and seeing food kind of in a different way. So, a portion this size may have been okay at one stage, but now the portions are getting bigger. That can be a telltale sign. But remember, the way this starts out, the first place this starts out with leptin resistance is actually from withholding food. So it normally starts out with withholding food, withholding a macronutrient like fat, withholding a macronutrient like protein, and not having it for such long periods of time, and then your body will go into what's called a starvation mode, and that's when all of these issues can happen. It's all about kind of the diet. It's all about diets that you've been on. It's also input versus output. So if you've been on a calorie restricted diet, a low fat diet, yet exercise intensely every single day, that's going to be severely confusing to your body, because your body's going to be going into starvation mode. But at the same time, in starvation mode, with low leptin, you should be using less energy, but you're using more energy. You're taking less energy in, and that's really confusing with the whole hormonal system and what your leptin needs to do, and also what your other appetite hormones need to do. High sugar is a biggie, and this is why back in 1980s and 1990s, they don't have them so much anymore, but remember when there was this huge kind of fad on low fat diets, and you'd go into the supermarket, or you go into I remember in the UK it was Boots. We go into Boots Chemist, and they'd have low fat sandwiches, low fat chocolate bars, low fat biscuits and kind of thing, and you get that for lunch, and it was low fat, but if you looked at it, it was super high sugar. So it was all this low fat food with high sugar. So in effect, you thought you were having this low energy food, but you were putting this kind of high energy food in. Stress is one of the biggest with leptin, so stress will affect leptin levels, no doubt about it. And like I said, some people will feel that they're not hungry, other people will feel that they're hungrier. So you'll either go one way or the other. And then lack of natural sunlight. So sunlight is so very important at helping with leptin resistance and helping to rebalance leptin as well. The melanin on our skin has so many different functions. We don't even understand the function of the sunlight and the melanin on our skin and the interaction with melanin stimulating hormone with the rest of our bodies. But we do know some of the interactions. And the fact of the matter is that the sunlight produces the melanin stimulating hormone, the melanin on our skin, and that does help to protect our metabolism, our metabolic rate. It helps to speed up our metabolic rate. It helps with weight loss. It helps to balance out appetite hormones. So we do know that. So there is a real intricate connection between melanin and our appetite hormones, and also our metabolic rate and how it works. So whenever you can get some sun, whenever you can do that. It's difficult right now, except for Rebecca with a blue sky and sun there, but I know it's difficult to get it. But that's why it's key that when it is summertime, it is key that you go out and you do that a little bit more. And then in wintertime, maybe supplement with some vitamin D, because we do know that low vitamin D can cause that kind of stubborn weight. Low vitamin D will affect leptin levels as well. So it's good to get that sunshine hormone up, the vitamin D, and that's going to help to regulate your metabolic system as well. And estrogen dominance is another thing. If you're estrogen dominant, or if you've got low testosterone, or if you've got high testosterone, that's going to affect your leptin levels as well. It's going to affect your appetite. It's going to affect how you're feeling during the cycle, your energy expenditure and your energy input during your menstrual cycle. So that's another thing to look out for. It's always good to track it. I always find it's good to track your cycle so that you can actually see what's going on with not only your symptoms but also your appetite. Do you have that increased appetite that week before your period? Do you have it during your period? When do you have it? It's always a good time to look, and I would actually track to see what's going on with your appetite during your 28-day cycle, or if it's a little bit different, your longer cycle, shorter cycle, and see what's going on, because high cortisol will cause hormone resistance, and so high cortisol can cause leptin resistance, and then coupled with estrogen dominance, that's kind of a nice party mix for weight gain and stubborn weight. So just to look out for those, and to know that the leptin does work with your other hormones. There is a nice dynamic going on between them. So you need to be having all the hormones working together rather than just focusing on one particular hormone. So what you can do, if you suspect there is some leptin resistance, and it is quite, you can test for it. There are tests that will tell you about your leptin. And if you do have any metabolic disorders, so if you've got any issues with your metabolism, if you know you're insulin resistant, if you know you've got high insulin in your blood, if you know you've got high glucose in your blood, and you do have some metabolic syndrome, it's a real worthwhile test, because it's going to help you to identify what's going on deeper down in your metabolism. But just to start with, getting into a snack routine and not grazing through the day, so having a breakfast, lunch and dinner, and then if you need to have 2 snacks in between, that's fine. But getting into a routine just eating at routine times, like we used to eat at routine times. Start the day with a savoury. So if you start the day with a savoury, that's going to help to rebalance your leptin, because starting with a full sugar meal or just fruit in the morning, that doesn't give your body a chance to actually reset, because as soon as you start with something sweet, again, that initiates that blood sugar response, and as soon as insulin is initiated, that just causes an increase in leptin, more leptin running around the body, and then that's what causes leptin resistance, and that's what leads to this metabolic disorder. So you see, it's wonderful. We've really got to be careful. Intense exercise will do the same. So if you know your leptin resistance, if you know you've got issues with leptin, you need to be careful with intense exercise in the morning, particularly intense exercise without any fuel in you, because again, intense exercise will do the same thing, but in a different way. So what exercise should essentially do is it should lower leptin, but it will only lower leptin when it knows you've got the right energy input and you're not stressed. So intense exercise in the morning with no fuel can essentially put your cortisol up, and that essentially will raise leptin, and that will cause leptin resistance as well. So I would just be careful with your intense exercise in the morning. I would do your exercise later on in the day, or maybe do something like a walk or yoga in the morning, and then if you do like intense stuff, do it at the weekend, do it later on in the morning, or maybe in your lunch break, that kind of time of day, and that will help as well to reset and rebalance leptin. 3 meals a day, so breakfast, lunch and dinner. When you're trying to balance them out, when you're trying to balance leptin out, you can use fasting. Fasting is good, but you just need to know that all your other hormones are beautifully working together. If you know that you've got super high cortisol, if you know you're not going to get much sleep, you suffer from insomnia, or you've got a busy schedule, then the first place to start is to have your 3 meals a day. Always start from a set point. So instead of going into a crazy food schedule of doing a ketogenic diet or doing fasting, start with 3 meals a day, then move on from there. Have that as your set point, your 3 healthy meals a day. Once you've got your 3 healthy meals a day popped in, and you've been doing that for a few weeks, you've been doing that for a month, you can then go outside of that and start seeing and start experimenting. But don't go from a really super unhealthy diet of grazing all day, just having sweets all day, or just having salad once a day, going into an intense routine like ketogenic or fasting. Move into a set point diet, which is your 3 meals a day, then move on to there on something else that you might want to experiment with, and you'll get so much more out of it. And then you'll be able to see the changes in your body as well so much more easily. You'll be able to actually see how your body adapts and what your body does, instead of going from here to here. You know, there's always a midway mark that you should go to as well. Routine is key when it comes to any of your hormones. Your hormones need your circadian rhythm. They need to know what's going on. So they need to know it's morning, they need to know it's lunchtime, they need to know it's nighttime. And really, it's for day, night. It's for light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. It's for day, night, and sleep. So having a routine is key. Waking up at a similar time each day, having your meals at a similar time each day, going to bed at a similar time each day, making sure that you shut everything down. That routine is going to help with your melatonin levels, which again is going to help with your leptin levels. It's going to help with your cortisol and also your estrogen levels. So routine is key when it comes to managing your leptin levels and helping with leptin resistance. It is common for those who, what was I going to say? It is common for those who don't sleep well to have out of balance leptin. So the first thing you would want to do is start getting into that kind of routine, getting into a routine of sleeping, and that will help with your leptin. But I have found those with leptin that are out of balance, they actually find it more difficult to get to sleep, stay awake, suffer from insomnia through the night. And then what that essentially does is that then affects your insulin and then affects your blood sugar levels. So just be aware of that and really try and get into that nighttime routine. And if you can't sleep or you don't feel like sleeping, try and have some wind down routine. Try and have something. Definitely don't get up in the middle of the night and turn on the computer. Definitely don't get up in the middle of the night and turn on the TV, turn on all the lights. You want to keep it dark. And even if you're lying there bored and frustrated, just breathe and just try and work through it. And you will get there in the end. You will get that sleep you need. Maybe not tonight, tomorrow night, but a night in the future. It will come if you just get your body used to that downtime at nighttime. And lastly, get your sunlight. So like I said, it is difficult, but here's what I've realized. Here's what I've realized for leptin levels, for my appetite levels, all of those kind of things. Even if you can't get direct sunlight, what you need to be doing is you need to be giving your body cues, natural cues. So I was making a mistake for a while, and the way my home office is set up, I don't have any windows in my home office. It's kind of inside an apartment, a bit with no windows. And for a time, I was getting up and I was just then making my lemon and water or getting a coffee or doing what I needed to do, and I was going from bed and I was going straight to my computer, and that's sending really crazy signaling to my brain. The brain doesn't know what's going on, you know, where's the sunlight, where's the day. So it's all about us making sure that we're sending the signaling of light, dark, the signaling of temperature, the signaling of what it's doing outside. So it's really important with your hormones, and it's really important for your leptin as well and your metabolism to send the right signals. So when you get up in the morning and it's light, no matter what the weather's like, you know, just even stepping outside for a couple of minutes, looking up to the sky and giving your body the signal it needs. The same goes with nighttime, making sure that you can see the dark sky, looking out, just stepping out, looking out, seeing the stars, seeing the moon, because those signals, we don't think that they really cause a huge impact, but they do internally. It helps to shut some systems down, it helps to turn systems on, it helps your body to understand what it should be doing, how it should be feeling, the temperature, all of that kind of thing. So it is really, really important. If you're an indoor person, night owl, whatever you are, try and get used to those natural signals, and that's going to help as well to rebalance, reset, and help with this leptin resistance, which will ultimately not only help you rebalance your other hormones, but will get your metabolic system back on track. So getting your sunlight, giving your body those natural signals, going outside first thing in the morning, looking at the sky before bed, these are all homeostatic resetting kind of things that you can do to help with your hormone balance. I think that was everything. I'm getting a bit of a dry, scratchy throat now, so I think I'm gonna go and have a cup of tea. But thanks, guys, for joining me. I think what I got out of this, actually, I always like to go back to leptin, because there's a few hormones that we don't understand how much they interlink with other hormones, and I think going back to this leptin hormone and looking at other hormones, this has really identified to me the importance of resetting and actually getting in contact with the environment around us and knowing when it is day, night, that kind of thing, and telling our body that. And I remember listening to something a few months ago. It was a podcast, and they were talking about kids in inner cities, and how in some inner cities, you know, huge cities that are really, really built up, some kids haven't even seen stars, like the night sky, because it's so they can't see up, it's too light. And it really made me think about the importance of us as humans actually being connected in that way and seeing outside. So if, like me, you do have like a smaller apartment and you're not always seeing the windows, then make the effort, no matter what the weather is, just to go and stand outside in the morning. I've started doing that, and it does help, and it's good for grounding as well, which, you know, I'm into. So that's kind of what I'm getting out of this a bit more. I'm seeing the importance of our surroundings, the circadian rhythm, and how our hormones work with one another. So there's going to be more cool stuff on that, I know, and looking forward to bringing that to you. But I hope you enjoyed this one on leptin, how to rebalance leptin, and also how it helps with your metabolic system. So have a great day, guys. Thanks, Rebecca, and keep warm and keep well. Bye.